Good evening, Costa Mesa residents. Once again, I'm Sam Stradell reporting for Costa Mesa Brief. Tonight, we're at the Neighborhood Community Center for the Eastside Community Forum, where there will be a tougher round of questions for the candidates of the upcoming November elections. Looks like we've been playing softball in the past, but tonight, it's about to turn hard. How did you feel at the last forum without your running mate there?
Well, unfortunately, she had a family issue that she had to deal with, and I think that's exactly where you have to balance everything. Family always comes first, but the reality is that forum, like this forum, like any other forum, it's about what I have to say to people, not what we have to say. So it's really important to have, people hear what Jay Humphrey has to say.
That's nice. We do have a question touching on some of the issues that you've briefly spoken about. What ideas do you have to reduce the proliferation of illegal fireworks?
Proliferation of fireworks.
Yes.
Well, years ago, the council actually did a advisory ballot measure, and the city basically said we don't need fireworks. We keep on falling into this thing about those fireworks are there to fund all the kids' sports and everything. We need to find other ways to accomplish that because fireworks tend to have significant effect on a lot of different people. And while it's wonderful in the safe and sane process, we get the illegals that are now making it sound like a war zone. At my house, as well as the neighborhoods all around me, I get reported all the time about the amount of really heavy-duty fireworks. And quite honestly, we should enforce that very strongly and make those go away. Because if one of those mortar shells happens to blow up in somebody's front yard, I can't imagine how many kids, how many adults, how many houses, how many anything can be damaged and hurt significantly. So I'm very concerned about that.
What methods should we take in order to get rid of these illegal fireworks?
First thing we have to do is we have to, in fact, find other types of funding sources for the funding that all the kids and all the organizations get from fireworks. Second, we have to find a way to make sure that what we're doing is we're looking at what the city wants. And one of the ways we do that is maybe we put another initiative on the ballot and make fireworks in Costa Mesa just illegal. That way, everybody who shoots off fireworks in Costa Mesa now starts to have issues that need to be dealt with by enforcement.
Well, speaking of opposition, I've seen that you had opposed the building of IKEA. Is that true?
Yes, it is true.
And why so?
Well, because the density was being imposed on the neighborhood, the sounds that would be coming up and emanating from their loading docks, which are all over on the South Coast Metro side, the South Coast Avenue side, Boulevard?
Drive,
Thank you. South Coast Drive side would emanate into the housing across the way. There was no mitigation done to fix those kind of things. The kind of traffic, there was an off-ramp for people coming up to come to IKEA. That off-ramp is also to take care of high-density commercial in that area that is planned for the future also. Well, if everybody comes up from the south and comes off that off-ramp, how do they get back on the freeway to go south again? That means they have to come out and around and go on either by Fairview or by Harbor to get back on the freeway. That will cause additional impacts on those two areas, and there was no plans on how to mitigate those things at that time.
How do you think tonight's going to go?
Well, I'm not sure. I know the crowd seems to be really into it. There seems to be a lot of support on all sides, and it should be interesting, that's for sure.
Now, you've been a very vocal advocate about homelessness in Costa Mesa. What are your steps to resolving this issue in this town if elected?
Sure, actually, if you go on my website, TonyCapitelli.com, I have a four-part plan for the city. I also have a four-part plan for homelessness. A couple of things on it include a new housing model, attacking mental health, enhancing the Costa Mesa street team, and working on public safety issues in our motels.
Now, how would we stop Costa Mesa from being a hot spot for homeless shelters if we're building a new model?
Sure, homeless shelters are actually part of an old model. It's a charity model. They do have some function, some emergency function, but my focus is on a community development model, which includes supportive housing, among others, and the focus is to actually work with people to get them out of homelessness.
Is there a certain number of shelters that you're looking for?
No homeless shelters in the city. What we need is a supportive housing project for the most at risk. We also need rapid rehousing, transitional housing. We need to bring the Illumination Foundation back, among other organizations, as well as affordable housing.
So, how do you feel about not being endorsed by your own organization?
Well, it was an organization I was a member of, so it wasn't my organization. And I'm disappointed, for whatever their reasons were. They wanted to select other candidates. I would have appreciated if they would have given me more advance notice of it and actually discussed it with me before. And I think they made an unfortunate decision for whatever the reasons are that they made it.
What do you think those reasons are? Do you have any idea?
I can't even speculate, I can't even speculate. It just, there were people somehow in the city, some people who have a preconceived notion of what makes a good candidate and what doesn't. And my only suggestion is that they had a preconceived notion of what made a good candidate, and it wasn't me.
What do you think about Sandra Guinness's comment about your last name?
Well, the comment she was purported to make was disappointing. And if it was taken out of context, then she should just apologize because it's not what she meant to say.
Has she ever tried to reach out to you after that comment was made?
Well, right now they're disputing whether the comment was made. No, she's never reached out to me, and I'm sorry for that.
And what did you really mean by saying Whitesburg is not necessarily a Costa Mesa name when in fact...
Say that.
Oh, can I finish the question?
But I didn't say it. So why? I did not say it. So there's no more to the question. You said, what did I mean? I didn't say that.
Okay, then it was a poor choice of words. So then what exactly did you mean?
Somebody else did a poor choice of words. I did not say that.
Do you know who?
I know who said I said it, but I don't. But I did not say that.
Okay, so have you gone on the record to clarify that you have not, or is this your opportunity right now?
I actually have told the pilot, and Mrs. Venezia did not ask me specifically if I said it or not. So I did not have the opportunity. She then later said, well, I didn't deny it. Well, lady, if you don't ask, I mean, I could deny that I said the sky is chartreuse. But if nobody asks, I'm not going to say it, right?
Okay. Moving on. Measure P is on the ballot, asking if we want the toll lanes on the 405.
As you look at the sample ballot, it's very confusing because the sample ballot says, if you read, I wish I had it with me, the first part says, are you in favor of toll lanes on the 405? And then the second part says, do you agree with the council majority that is opposed to toll lanes on the 405? So when you look at how it's worded, it's extremely confusing. You don't know whether you're supposed to say yes or no. Because if you say yes, that means that you think there should be toll lanes. But if you say no, that means you disagree with the council. So the wording on the ballot measure is extremely poor. And it's very disappointing to see that it came out that way. The statement today about fireworks was a great example of why advisory measures can be problematic. In the early 90s, we had an advisory measure regarding fireworks. And by a very slim margin, the people of Costa Mesa said they didn't want fireworks. But it was such a slim margin, we tried to reach a compromise because it was advisory, whereby we would have strict rules, we'd have strict limitations, And we would try to make sure that fireworks did not impose unduly on the neighbors. And actually, for about 10 years, people who remembered that were very, very careful. They'd pass out flyers with all the rules on them to the people who were buying fireworks. People who were buying fireworks were like, whoa, we're going to lose this right if we don't really observe the rules. But then, in the midst of times, all anybody remembered was there was an election and we still have fireworks. So the people of Costa Mesa must have voted to keep fireworks. So that actually points up the dangers of advisory measures. And as a matter of fact, John Copel of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association recently went to court to keep an advisory measure off the state ballot. And the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association basically said when you have an advisory measure, it's an expensive, glorified public opinion poll, and it tends to make people respect the electoral process less because they want their votes to count, and they're being told even as they go in, your vote doesn't really count.
So, are you trying to make a correlation between fireworks and Measure P?
No, but what I'm saying is had the fireworks measure been a straight up or down, people wouldn't now be proceeding on the basis we have a free-for-all for fireworks because the voters of Costa Mesa support it. Because, in fact, the voters of Costa Mesa did not support it. But because it was an advisory measure, people don't really remember what the result was. All they know is that we voted and we still have fireworks, so we're entitled to have a free-for-all.
Measure P was on the ballot. You voted for it to be on the ballot, and then there was a rebuttal against it. Why was that?
Well, I actually think, in retrospect, both because of what I've heard recently by a number of people about fireworks, what I read about the lawsuit that was filed by the Jarvis Association, which was subsequent to that. Well, I think it had been filed, but there was nothing really in the paper that much until the result came out. I really do believe it was a mistake to vote to put an advisory measure on, and I would say in the future, I believe that you have to have your yes be yes or your no be no, not what we kind of think this. And I have to say I agree with the position of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association on the wisdom of having advisory votes.
Mr. Bunyan, you speak quite often about unity. You have statements on your website touching on unity of our city. What specific act would you do to achieve that goal?
That is communicating with all the stakeholders in this city. Sort of the local politics in Costa Mesa seems to be dominated by two groups, and we're forgetting about all the groups in between and outside of that. And so I think good leaders, whether it's military, business, or spiritual leaders, they bring everybody aboard, not just a chosen few.
This is your third attempt for city council. Do you think you will win this seat? If not, would you run again?
Yes to both answers. Questions, sorry, I should say. Yeah, we're doing good. We're surging right at the perfect time. And I had a feeling that would happen later on. One thing about running for politics is that you have to present yourself as a palatable communicator and build the trust first. And there's been plenty of people that have ran before their first times and not won. Jim Righeimer, Gary Monahan, Katrina Foley. And if it's good for them, then it's good for me.
You feel confident that you've built trust with the community?
I do.
How do you think tonight's going to go for you?
I think it's going to be an interesting format, and I think that the residents are ready to hear what we have to say. It's like they're really making up their minds, so I'm excited that there's this many people wanting to see what we think.
So before this election, no one knew who you were. You're the new kid on the block. How do you think you'll succeed in this election being green?
They need somebody new, and they need somebody who can work well together with others and solicit cooperation. So I think we'll do fine. I think I have a very good chance to win, but I think the most important, my issue needs a chance to win. That's the charter.
What would be your first order of business if elected?
The first order of business would be to work on the budget, the charter issues, give us budget reserves, and I believe we need those. So that would be my first order of business.
So just a couple questions for this evening. Why does your organization, CM4RG, refer to itself as a grassroots organization?
Because we started from the community of very diverse people who wanted to get involved when they were concerned about the direction the city was going. We're all residents. We began talking together after city council meetings and just kind of grew organically.
Why is CM4RG endorsing Katrina Foley and not Whitesburg when he was a part of the organization and just had just as good as poll numbers?
I don't know that he did, but that's, I can't really talk about a confidential poll, but we did pick the two best candidates, and it was a very democratic process. We had, I should be staring at the camera, not at you, huh? Okay, and we had an endorsement process where 11 people interviewed the candidates. The vote from that committee was 10-1 to endorse Jay Humphrey and 11 people to endorse Katrina. Then we had a big group meeting, about 65 people came. The result of that was that 52 ballots were cast for Jay Humphrey, 51 for Katrina, and only 11 for Harold. So it was really obvious what the desire of the group was and who they thought the best candidates were. And that's just how it worked out.
That was your process.
Yeah, can I say something more? That was a really strong endorsement, and so I felt very comfortable with it.
Hi, perfect. Can anyone join CM4RG?
Pardon?
Can anyone join CM4RG?
Well, as long as they're in line with our goals and purposes. We have turned away a couple of people that have been very public about just almost the opposite of the kinds of things that we're working for.
So you actually have people come in, try to join the organization, and are just completely out of line with the platform?
Oh yeah, for an example, somebody wanted to, well, membership's a little loose. People really define if they're a member or not, but somebody wanted to join the organization and come to meetings who had been bashing us on Facebook and making fun of us on Facebook and being very outspoken about how he didn't like our group, and so it just didn't seem like a real good fit.
Yeah. Could we video a future meeting? Could Costa Mesa Brief?
I don't know. I wish that we had him video our general plan info meeting, because we were videoing it. The camera died after a half hour. Yeah, and it was so fantastic. We had a team that had researched all kinds of things about the general plan and presented that information so wonderfully, and unfortunately we didn't get a video to post, so I don't know.
Doing well tonight?
Yeah, no, tonight was great. Tonight was easy. The last event that we had was kind of a pile-on, and this way was just to answer the question, you could go through it. It's a little frustrating when a question would go to somebody else that you wanted to answer, and because you're only given a minute, you can't even, try to answer the previous question because there's just not enough time. But it was good. It was real good.
You think tonight's questions were fair and balanced? 2 years ago,
Well, clearly the questions. I mean, when someone takes a minute to do the question and say all the issues and the problems that are here, it's a setup. So there's a setup in the question. You can ask basic things about how do you feel about development or density or whatever without saying, gosh, we've ruined the whole city, now what should we do next? I mean, there was kind of that kind of attitude there with the questions. But listen, this group put it together. A lot of people showed up for the event. I'm just glad to be here.
So you think some things have changed from a couple years ago?
No, I think it's the same thing. I think that this group, the Eastside group, they're great people on the East Side, but they don't represent the whole community. And they do have, obviously, attitudes. The board members of the Eastside group have given money to the group that supports my opponents and have given money directly to them. So that's just who they are. That all being said, it's fine,
They claim that you don't listen. What do you say to that, the Eastside community?
You know what? It's amazing. Sometimes people think because they come to you and they talk to you and you don't do what they want, they think it's like a 3-year-old child. You say, you're not listening to me. What the fact of the matter is we're listening to them, but just because they say something doesn't mean that's what we're going to do. So it's not that we don't listen. I absolutely listen, but I'm put in office by 100,000 people in the community to say, do what you think is best for the community, and that's why we're putting you there. And that's a lot different than just somebody coming up there and saying, listen to what I want you to do. There's many times where political activist groups will line up a bunch of people at the microphone to ask us to do things that in a normal situation you would never do. So you've got to watch out and understand that those political groups do come in. You listen to them, you hear their points. If there's something you want to change, you change it. But you don't change your understanding of an issue just because there's more people at one microphone than the other microphone.
Last question, Mr. Mayor. Out of your 4 years, the past 4 years, is there anything that you regret?
You know what? I don't know about regret. I mean, there's clearly hindsight is 2020, and there are some things you might have done differently. On the other hand, based on results where we're at, we did it exactly the perfect way it had to be done to get to where we are today, and I'm fine with that.
You touched on the coyote issue this evening. Are you looking to put in place a model that's similar to Seal Beach in Costa Mesa?
Yes, I am, and I wrote something that got printed in the Daily Pilot, which suggested the use of drones to help to find out these drones, these little drones. Okay, they're about this big. Okay, they're being used by paparazzi to spy on movie stars. Okay, we can use them to track down and find out where the coyotes live and make the job easier. Okay, and we can then get control over their population. We need to do it. We need to do it soon. They don't have the drones yet. They're not here yet. But in Seal Beach, they're just doing it the traditional way, and they're going after them big time. I went to a meeting last month. There must have been 400 people in this school auditorium screaming and hollering to do something about the coyotes. In this city, they're protected. Okay, who are they protected by? Bureaucrats and politicians who are afraid to stand up against certain groups like Humane Society. And I'm not saying kill all the coyotes. I'm just saying they don't belong here in the city. They need to go the way of the wolf and be somewhere else. That's all. Get them out of here. Put them in the hills. Put them in the mountains.
You'd like them out. Now,
They're killing cats. They're killing dogs. They're
dogs. You've always been a strong advocate for the dog park. Why should people take you seriously if that's your number one issue? Is that number one issue?
It's one of many.
One of many. What would be your first order of business?
My first order of business is the density thing, okay? If I wake up one morning 10 years from now and I feel like I'm living in Santa Monica again, I'm gone. I don't want to live where I can't find parking, where there's noise, where there's traffic, and there's all kinds of issues like that. I had that in LA. You see, there's certain things that affect me personally to whether I want to stay in Costa Mesa or not. That is one issue, okay? The dog park can disappear tomorrow. I got a beautiful backyard, and I'll get by.
Even though that's been your topic, it could disappear.
It is, because no one else will stand up for the poor people who don't have a beautiful home. They don't have a backyard, and that is their backyard, and I feel sorry for them, and it's a disaster, and the city's not doing a good job in taking care of it, okay? But if the dog park were to disappear, I'd still be living here, okay? If the coyotes kill my dogs, I'm gonna get out of here. Okay, I don't want these sober living things across the street from me. So I don't want addicts and stuff and crime and stuff. So there are issues that are more important than other. The bottom line is, are they impacting my quality of life? Do I want to stay here in Costa Mesa? And if certain changes come about, I may have to leave. So that's where I draw the line.
If you're not elected, would you leave?
No, not yet. But if it keeps going the way it's going, okay, I feel that the council majority is going to be back again for 2 more years, and then they're going to lose control 2 years from now, okay? To me, the favorites here are Katrina Foley and Jim Righeimer. There's only 2 seats. There's 8 of us up here. They're well-known. They got money behind them.
Well, we'll see what happens, right? We're just a month around the corner. So you're running for the OC Water Board. How's the campaign going so far?
It's going great. I got my signs today. They're in my trunk, so I've got to put them together and get them out there. My territory is from Costa Mesa, Little of Newport, Little of Irvine, Little of Tustin, all the way out there by the 241 and a little of Fountain Valley.
All right.
1,000 voters.
That's quite a big population to take care of. Do you feel up for the job?
Definitely. I'm walking and talking and sending out my little cards.
So you ran for Congress, and you were on the council, and now you're running for the water board. What do you say to those that say that you're just shopping around for a new job?
Oh, I'm not shopping around for a new job. I would never run unless people have come to me and asked me to run.
What possessed you to go for water?
Well, the door was open, and the person who's on the water board now is actually on 2 water boards. And so I think that's a little of a conflict of interest, that there's plenty of room for competition.
Competition, speaking of, you're going up against Sean Duane, that has many years of expertise. What do you think sets you apart from him and that people will vote for you rather than Mr. Duane?
That's a good question. Well, people know that I am very independent, and I do my research, I do my homework, and that nobody owns me. I'm not committed to desalinization like Mr. Duane is. He's part of a desal group, and Cal Desal, I think, is the name of it. And I think there's plenty of room for competition, that a person should just be on one board, and I've been on the city council for 8 years. I was on the school board for 8 years. I do my homework, and I'm a quick learn, and I'm looking forward to it.
How do you think you did this evening?
You know, I think it was a great forum, a lot of questions on really complicated issues and not a lot of time to answer them, but I think everybody did their best, and you know, it was a really well turned out event, so it's nice to be here. I thought that the questions were thoughtful and they were contemplative of all of the issues that are facing the city council right now. So yeah, it was fair. I mean, everybody had a chance to chime in on, really, it was the 15 issues that are facing the city council.
So why are you leaving the school board?
My term is up.
Your term is up. So what's something?
So I think there's a misconception out there that I'm leaving the school board. You have a 4-year term, and my term is up, and I decided not to run for re-election. I actually never planned to run for more than 4 years.
Forum of the bunch.
So this evening you thought?
It was the best forum of this whole series.
Why so?
I thought the questions were fair, evenly distributed, and I thought the candidates, those that showed up, had an opportunity to answer the questions fairly. Nobody was cut off. I thought the crowd was enthusiastic on several sides. I don't know where they found the buses to bus all these people in, but I thought it was a good thing.
Do you think anything changed from 2 years ago in respect to the audience, in respect to the candidates and the type of questions that were asked as well?
This forum versus...
Yes, versus 2 years ago.
No, I think for the last 3 cycles, the Eastside neighbors have produced the best forum each year. I went through all of them. I thought the one 2 years ago was excellent, just as I think this one was. I thought the questions were fair. I don't think anybody piled on anybody tonight or 2 years ago.
Okay, definitely.
There are those who don't agree with me, but that's what makes a horse race.
Everyone has their own opinion, right?
Yes.
Which candidate do you think has the best ideas for the Eastside community?
Well, I try not to think about just the Eastside, because this is an election to serve the entire community. So while I think where I live on the east side is a great part of town, probably the best part of town, I think Katrina Foley and Jay Humphrey would make the best solution for making this a better city.
And there's your answer. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Number one, how does it feel to be married to the mayor of Costa Mesa?
What can I say? It feels great. Most of the time. I think sometimes it's difficult. Jim's busy, but we support him, and he's a great husband, and I think he has a lot to offer in the community. And sometimes we talk about it. I say to Jim, how does it feel to be beat up? Or you also get a lot of support, but I get concerned when people beat him up. And he says, this is his calling and what God has given him, and he feels a moral obligation to respond to that. And I believe he has a lot of good things to offer our community.
Now, some people say that 2 years ago the questions were stacked against him. Do you feel that that was the case this evening?
No, I think, there will always be an opposition, no matter what you believe in or no matter what your answers will be. There will always be someone who does not agree with you. And what I like about Jim is he stands up for what he believes in, regardless of the questions being tough. And he sometimes takes up things that nobody wants to talk about, tough questions that indeed needs to be discussed.
How do you feel about another 4 years in the limelight if he were to be elected?
Well, I think I'll be proud of Jim, and I would thank our community, and I hope they indeed will make the choice to elect Jim for another 4 years. I believe he's the most qualified person we have out there for the job. And another interesting point, I think, is that when you sit and listen to the panel up there, and a lot of the candidates are throwing out words as hostile, the majority is hostile, I was thinking to myself, it's like, well, you choose to call itself to call it hostile because you don't agree with it. So I'd like to see if it was the other way around, if we should call you hostile, because I don't think it's hostility. I think it's disagreement. And I think we'd like to have clarity over agreement.
I just want to say that there's a lot of sign vandalism going on both sides. This sign of ours got ripped up and was found in the street. Somebody's stealing most of our signs, most of our No on O signs on Mesa Verde Drive, and I hear that it's happening on the other side too. This is just really juvenile and ridiculous. And if somebody, if you're taking somebody's signs, you're taking the money that people have contributed to whatever group that they're supporting, and they're citizens just like whoever's doing the vandalism. And I just want to make a plea that it would stop. It's unnecessary. This is everybody's free speech, right? It's an election season, and if you support the candidates that I support and you're doing it to the other side, stop it. If you don't like the people that I like or the issues that I like, leave my signs alone. Leave our signs alone. Everybody needs to just think about this and stop trashing other people's signs. Thank you.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How do you think the questions played out this evening?
Well, first of all, I think that the forum was run really well. I think that we had a great opportunity to have some good questions that were asked, and I think that John Stevens ran it very well as far as keeping the crowd sort of under control and making sure that we could address the questions and had the time limits adhered to and all that stuff. So I really think John did a great job. And, I had some concerns because the last Eastside Forum, some of the questions were obviously very biased, in my opinion, and I think that other people shared that opinion. And so I think coming into this time, I was kind of expecting a little bit more of the same. The questions did cover the wide gamut of very important issues that we're facing in Costa Mesa, and this is a particular organization's forum. This isn't intended to be, I don't think, a necessarily nonpartisan forum or an unbiased forum. I think that there is an organization that has an opinion, and I think that that opinion you can see from just how some of the leaders of the organization express their political beliefs, which is their everyday right. But I think that some of the questions had a presumption to them. And I think the presumption to those questions was that things are broken, or something is broken, or something is going wrong, or everybody's mad about something. And how...
So you feel that was the theme for each of the questions, so to speak?
I do. Instead of saying, some people in the community feel that there's a problem with overdevelopment and density, right? Or but the reality is that while there are people in the community who are definitely upset about some of the developments that are happening under the West Side plans and under the small lot ordinance and some of the ones that preceded the small lot ordinance, there are a lot of other people who like these. And so, maybe you have people who feel that maybe they just all talk to the same people and they're all getting that opinion from someone. But I thought the premise of the question about development in particular, I'm a planning commissioner, so for me I was a little concerned by that question, because the presumption was that over-dense projects are being built, or that density is an issue, and that's actually not a fact. It's factually incorrect. There was a general plan amendment for the 125 Baker, but as far as most, if not all, of the projects that are being constructed or approved under the West Side plans, they're not over-dense. They are within the densities allowed by the general plan and the West Side plans. And yet the question presumed that overdense variances are happening, that things are being built overdense. That's not the case. So that was one example. Other examples are, about the group home issue, as if it's some sort of new thing or some sort of recent terrible thing. We all know it's terrible, but I think we should ask the community as a general, I think we should present the question as, how do you feel about this issue, as opposed to presenting it as, here is this fire, are you going to put it out? Sort of is the questions as I saw them.
So we'll see.
I didn't see an objective asking of questions. I didn't see an objective set of questions. I saw a very subjective set of questions. And you know what? That's Eastside Neighborhoods Group's complete prerogative. And I thought that all the candidates answered all of the questions very well. I liked the randomness of the questions. I liked the randomness of the selection of the answering. And I thought John did a great job. But that's my opinion as far as the nature of the questions.
Well, folks, it looks like it's a wrap for this season's elections. We've covered all 3 debates. Make sure to check out our prior videos, Feet to the Fire Forum, and also the Mesa Verde community. Once again, I'm Sam Strodell, reporting for Costa Mesa Brief, giving you the straight scoop.